Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to Beyond Terrestrial Podcast, your home for the strange, the macabre, the conspiratorial, and the all-around supernatural conversations. Recording from the Bell Witch's backyard, I'm your host, Lee Arrett, alongside Mike Roop.
Hey, everybody. On today's podcast, we're going to be talking about everybody's favorite forest animal, the big brother to all cryptids, and personally, one of my best friends, Bigfoot.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Or more appropriately,
That's better.
Sasquatch and a bunch of his little buddies. So, we here at Beyond Terrestrial are firm believers in the existence of Sasquatch, and we want you to believe too. So, Lee, how are we going to convince the non-believers?
Well, I think first of all, we have to look at how many different sightings there actually are. It's hard to discount the fact that so many different people have seen Sasquatch, but not just Sasquatch, all of the other ape-like or human-like hominid apes out there. So there are people in the Philippines that have seen the orang Pendek. Mm-hmm. There's the Yeti. There's so many different examples of a Bigfoot-like creature throughout the world. Yeah. It's hard to discount the fact that there could be the potential for a large humanoid primate.
Right. Primates, I think they're such a big, is the term species or is the term, or
I think it's genus.
Genus classification?
Something like that,
I'm not really
yeah.
sure. But there's so many different types of primates. So it's really not that hard to believe that there's primates outside of the stereotypical, like, chimpanzee territory. You know what I mean?
Well, it wasn't until, like, the mid-1900s that they found the silverback gorillas.
Right. There's a lot of that type of stuff all throughout the world.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to discuss a little bit about what we've seen in our numerous reviews of different videos, reading different books. Ultimately, it's up to the listener and the individual person to decide whether or not they feel Sasquatch or something similar exists or not. We're hoping that at the end of this conversation, if you're not a believer, you will be. But we also understand that you have the right to be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you can discount anything if you want to. You know, you can find a reason that something doesn't make sense. And we were talking before we started recording. We were watching some of the videos, and it's kind of like, even, you know, a couple guys that I like believe in the possibility of Sasquatch. We're like, I don't know, man. Like, some of these videos are kind of.
We're watching videos and we're like, wow, that is way too nonchalant. Or that was definitely an elk lying down.
Yeah.
I believe that one of these casts that they created, we could recreate by using Mike's dog and having him lie down, and then we just blow up the cast.
Yeah, it's Sammy, by the way. Sammy's his name. He's a good dog.
He is a good dog.
He protects the house. He's really super vicious.
No, he's not.
But yeah, so obviously we got to bring up the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Oh yeah,
the most famous
that's the
of
thing
all
that
yeah.
Everybody knows about the Patterson-Gimlin film. Mm-hmm. So Mike, what are your thoughts on Patterson-Gimlin film?
If you don't, real quick, it's the most famous Bigfoot video you have in your mind right now. It's that one. Just in case you're not sure exactly which one it is. It's the one in Northern California back in the 60s, the late 60s, that was recorded by a guy named Patterson and a guy named Gimlin. And their first names escape me right now, but
Robert Patterson and something Gimlin.
Was it one of them was Robert and one of them was Roger?
I think it was Roger.
Roger Patterson. Yeah.
I'm going to find out.
Yeah, let's look that up just to be official and all. But I don't know how I feel about it. I don't discount it, because I don't know. I don't know what to believe. Most of these, I don't know what to believe. I try and look at them as skeptical as possible. But I think overall, I think it could be legitimate for sure.
So it's Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin.
Oh, Bob. Bob. Hell of a guy. Yeah, so apparently, Bob was asked later in life, towards the end of his life, about what he thought, because he claims when he was there, they both obviously claim that they saw it, but, and for Robert Gimlin, his whole life, he swore that what they recorded was real. And but towards the end of his life, somebody asked him, and he thought maybe old Patty, pulled the wool over his eyes. He doesn't know. He's like, it's possible. Maybe they had some sort of, costume. But at the time, I mean, that would have been an extremely well-made costume. Almost impossible. It would be like Hollywood movie status.
Yeah, it would have been a very high quality. And as Mike said, there was supposedly one guy at the time that was capable of making a costume that's that good.
Right.
And honestly, that guy made the costumes for Planet of the Apes, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's correct. So. And he came out. He's like, I had nothing to do with it. There's no way. And I think I don't remember the exact quote that he had said, but he said something that if it was faked, that was a very well made costume. So props to whoever made it if somebody did, but I don't think so. I think it could be legitimate personally.
And as we say, there's one guy at the time that could have made that. Obviously, that discounts human ingenuity. So we have to think that, it's possible.
There's been other people to make really awesome costumes.
Yeah, I'm sure they could have. But there's one person that we know of right now that would have been capable of making it, and he says that he didn't.
Right.
So when I look at the video, I do see some question in my eyes about how nonchalant the character moving through the woods happens to be. If I were Bigfoot and I was elusive as we believe that he must be, I do wonder about these videos that show Sasquatch just walking away,
kind of cruising around,
just kind of calmly walking through.
Mm-hmm. That's the case with the Paul Freeman video as well.
Exactly, and it was the same basic thing.
Yeah,
he's this Bigfoot is just calmly walking away from the camera. Looks over, sees you, and then tries to walk away farther. There is no effort to move at a higher rate of speed. Mm-hmm. There is no effort to move quickly. Now, is that as fast as Bigfoot can move? Have they evolved that way?
I doubt it.
I doubt it.
Yeah. There's been lots of stories and people that have said that they thought they heard them running and things like that, or moving very quickly, that they've seen people, Sasquatch moving extremely fast. So,
well, and if they are even, remotely designed like a human being or a chimpanzee or a gorilla, they have the capability of moving quickly.
Yeah, they move their legs faster.
Exactly. Prophetic words from Mike over here. They move their legs faster.
That's what I do.
Perfect. You got your cape on yet?
I found it.
Perfect.
I found it. But I think to that I would say, I think that maybe Sasquatch is possibly just a little bit more docile of a creature. He doesn't have to be angry. You know what I mean? He doesn't have to be. It's like, think about an elk or something. You know what I mean? Even most bears, unless they feel threatened, they're just kind of cruising out there in the forest doing their own thing. In the times that there have been supposed Bigfoot attacks is when they had probably felt threatened. So
Well, that's fair. My only thought process is they are so hard for us to find. They're so hard for us to find proof of. I mean, even in one of these videos, and granted, it was the same one that we were like, I'm pretty sure that's an elk lying down.
yeah,
The experts are saying that he is going, or that the creature is going to lengths to avoid having, not just being seen, but leaving traces of their existence.
mm-hmm. Like they want to be left alone.
Exactly, like they want to be left alone. So my question to that is, why would they be so nonchalant? Now, I can see it in the Patterson Gimlin film. I can see that because, we've just gotten to a point where, I mean, this is a very early video, like handheld video camera. If they are smart, they start to recognize that they have, or that human beings have ways to now record evidence of them, and now they're like, oh, now we have to hide.
And I think we're not doing him enough credit to say he probably knows when he's threatened and when he's not.
Well, absolutely.
You know, if it's a couple guys holding a video camera that are there, kind of like, we come in peace, you know, he's not, you know, or I guess that was supposed to be a female in the Patterson Gimlin film. But, you know, it's like if you see a bunch like hunters and they got guns on them and stuff, you know, they've probably been shot at before, you know, and whatnot. Hundreds of times, God knows how many times, you know.
Well, absolutely. You have people that claim
all those
they
crazy
shot
hunters. All those crazy hunters. I saw Bigfoot. I saw him. I was out there in the woods.
I shot at him. Didn't even knock him down.
Didn't knock him down. He just kept on running. You know, I mean, how many hundreds of stories are like that out there in the world? You know, there's got to be hundreds.
Well, yeah. So. But I also look at it as, well, yeah, they're not feeling threatened, but they were. During the Patterson Gimlin one, yeah, they were just two people and they were holding up a weird box that didn't look like a gun.
Right.
So
and they probably just didn't seem threatening.
They didn't seem threatening. So obviously,
same with Paul Freeman, just an old guy walking by himself in the woods with a video camera. You know.
Well, yeah, but I like to give them the thought process of they have to be as elusive as they are. They have to know. Yeah. What they're looking at. They have to.
They're not stupid.
They have to take steps to avoid being detected.
Yeah.
So I think that they know what a video camera is. I think they know what a gun is.
Yeah.
They obviously probably don't know the name of it.
Right.
But they know what a video camera is, and I believe that they take steps to avoid being photographed or at least videotaped.
Right.
Well.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's totally possible. Or they at least know that. You know, in the cases where it has happened and somebody has caught footage of them, if they were aware of it in these cases where they look over and stuff like that, they must have some sort of, thought that thing's not going to hurt me.
Well, yeah. And I absolutely believe that they can recognize the difference between a gun and another item. But that's the thing with Sasquatch. They seem to know what the difference is. And for as many reports as you have of, Sasquatch being a very docile creature, I personally think that they are very docile. But I also think that they're very aware, very careful about what humans are doing in the woods around them.
Yeah. They know before you know.
Mm-hmm. And it leads me to wonder if they are either intentionally being seen because they've already assessed the situation. They know they're not going to get hurt, and they're capable of scaring you off.
Right.
Or they feel they're capable of scaring you off.
They feel bigger in the alpha.
They feel like there. The alpha.
Yeah.
Or they're aware of the danger of the situation, and they just don't be seen.
Right.
I was listening to another podcast, Expanded Perspectives podcast. I have to drop it because I was listening to them. And they're a great podcast. They had an author on there, David Polides. He's the author of a book called Missing 411. This book actually chronicles hundreds of missing persons cases, found these missing persons cases in in national forests and other things like that. Some of them are children. Some of them are grown adult males. These people go into the forest and they just disappear. When they are found, they're typically stripped of their clothing. They can be up sheer cliffs, farther than what would have been expected of them to be traveling.
And this is specifically in
it's not just
state
national
parks,
forests,
national forests.
but it really clued him in when he was talking to people at national forests and asking about more information about missing people that went missing in the forest, and he found out that they don't track these things. There doesn't seem to be anybody actually paying attention to the people that go missing in national parks.
Huh.
That's just strange.
That is weird.
That's almost like somebody doesn't want us to know about how many people go missing in national parks.
Right, that's really strange.
Just a thought process there.
And then, well, I mean, we can go the conspiracy route with this too, and like they're all being stripped of their clothes.
Absolutely.
Nobody wants to know that they're going missing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could go pretty dark with this, but that shit,
I know you could go dark with this.
it happens, man. It happens. You know what I mean? There's that. Well, we won't get into that. We'll save that for another episode. But so I mean, there's that possibility too, that there's just some strange things afoot out there in the woods.
So he's found stories of, not to cut you off. I apologize.
No, go ahead. I was done.
So he's found stories of children that have gone missing, 2-year-old children that were gone for maybe 14 hours. And they were found in their underwear 15 miles away.
Wow.
Now, I have one daughter. Mike's got 4 daughters. And all of them were 2 at one time. In fact, Mike's got one pretty close to that, not to give too much away.
She's 3.
I
she's almost 4. She'll be 4
She will be 4 this month. And I know that my 2-year-old, when she was 2, was not capable of traveling 15 miles.
Not even close.
In a day at all.
Ever, probably. If like,
unless you
if you had a 2-year-old little kid out in the woods, they're what are they going to do?
Distracted. They're going to wander somewhere.
15 miles.
They're not going to travel
no
in a straight line 15 miles away over fences.
Yeah.
And they're darn sure not going to do it in a span of 14 hours.
Yeah, no way.
So this child was found 15 miles away. There's another story of a child that was missing overnight and found, and it was a cold night, found laying in a patch of grass, and there was evidence of some large mammal laying next to him. Now, in many cases of these missing children, there's reports of them being carried off by a bear. Mm-hmm. Now, they'd say things like, people would say things like, oh, the bear carried this child off in one of its paws and ran on 3 paws. Never seen a bear carry.
Don't they usually pick them up with their mouth?
Yeah, exactly. That's where I went with that too. They would pick it up with their mouth if they were going to pick it up.
Yeah.
So my thought process is, what I have seen carry something very similar to that, a gorilla.
Right.
Now, granted, typically we imagine Sasquatch walking upright just like a modern human does. Mm-hmm. But we have to remember they still are primates.
Yeah. Well, they still have very long arms and kind of hunch. And
they still have very long arms. They kind of hunch. Is it not more believable that something similar body style to a gorilla ran down the woods? Also, that allows for it to be more easily misunderstood or what's the word I'm looking for? Miscited as a bear. If this thing is walking on all 4s, or typically,
if you don't know exactly what it is, and be like,
yeah.
It was a big furry creature out there that had, I guess, 4 legs, because his arms are very long.
And he had his arms on the ground at the time.
Yeah.
That's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you think of these adult males, they're typically carrying guns. They're bigger. They're more threatening than a child is.
Well, territorial beef there going on.
There's a territorial beef or something of that nature. And then you have the factor that these adult males are stripped of their clothing, but they're found dead typically. There's women that that are disappeared, also stripped of their clothes and found These people are found up cliffs, miles away from where they should be. They're found farther up the mountain.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah, that's what's strange about like the hunters. We were talking about earlier the hunters and stuff that go missing and whatnot, who have, I guess, claimed to have been either beat up by Bigfoot or whatever, had seen it, or killed by Bigfoot, attacked by Bigfoot, and they're found in really strange locations and stuff. Like, now, I have friends and stuff who are hunters and whatnot, and it's possible you can get lost out there.
Yeah, I'm not discounting getting lost.
Right, but like as you had said, it's like you don't go up a mountain. You know what I mean?
If you're lost, you might go to the top of a hill to see if you can see
to find
something,
the next ridge or something,
or to find the next ridge. But you're not going to climb up towards the top of a mountain. You're not going to climb up a sheer cliff to do that. You're going to look for water. Right. Anybody that has any sort of even very little training knows that if you follow water, you'll eventually find people.
Right.
So that's you look for a road, you look for water, you don't look for the top of a mountain.
But when you get straight and knocked out in the back of the head by Sasquatch and he picks your ass up and takes you up a mountain to his den, then
exactly
you get stuck up there. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Then you die of exposure.
Right.
It's just a thought. And at the same time, you can say that these people were abducted by aliens just as easily.
Yeah.
So it's just these people are disappearing and appearing strange places when their bodies are found. If you're talking about an adult male, I personally believe that is very easy for Sasquatch to feel threatened by an adult male.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially if they're carrying a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have a thought that maybe Sasquatch is very aware of us to the point where anytime we're out there, they have some sort of knowledge of us being there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
well, they're very in tune with their surroundings. That's where they live. That's their house.
Exactly.
Exactly. It's just like us going into a brand new house. The person who lives there knows the way around a lot better than we do.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, so we wanted to get a little bit into some other like hominoid cryptids, kind of,
Yep.
And one that was really super interesting. First, I want to make the distinction between Yeti.
Okay.
And Sasquatch. Yeti is specific,
Yes, absolutely.
Otherwise also known as the abominable snowman.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeti lives in the Tibetan mountain range. Hold on, I'm gonna look up specifically real quick.
Well, I believe the Himalayas is part of that mountain range that he's in.
Right.
Specifically, yeah. I don't know exactly the name of the range.
Well, it's the Himalayas.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the Himalayas. That's where he's supposed to. I mean, I think he's been sighted in some other ranges, but it's it's all around that area. Yeah. It's even been part of that culture. Mm-hmm.
So, Mike, do you think that the Yeti is the same as a Sasquatch, or do you think that you said that they're different, but how so are they different?
I would say they are different in the aspect of the difference between an orangutan and a chimpanzee.
Okay. So that's a pretty solid difference then.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not that big, but you know what I'm saying? It's they're both primates, but they're a little bit different from each other,
So
the obvious.
So you don't think that they're just like two different, I hate to say it this way, but two different canines that happen to be different colors and slightly different variations, or do you think that they're more like
it'd be like a different breed of a dog, if you're going to look at it from that way.
So, okay. I'm with you.
That's the way I think about it, and I think that is generally accepted.
That's kind of how I look at it too.
But yeah, it's specifically the Yeti is in the folklore of Nepal. Nepal, Bhutan, and Tibet in the Himalayan mountains. that's indigenous to that region, you might say, and it's part of their culture. But yeah, so obvious physical differences. I don't think he is quite as tall.
I think the biggest thing is they tend to be lighter in color. They're not always white as the...
They're not like perfectly white, but they're light in color.
They tend to be light in color, and that could honestly just be an adaptation to their environment.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not necessarily that makes them a completely different creature.
Yeah, exactly. But one thing that's super interesting about the Yeti is that it seems like there is a lot more evidence that people have come forth with. Like, there's a lot of evidence for the Yeti. There's a lot of hair that's been found. There's a lot of prints. There's a lot of things. I don't know why.
Well, and there's a Tibetan monastery, or there's a monastery that has a skull of a Yeti.
Right.
Now,
maybe that's because it's such a part of their culture.
And I want to believe that that's what it is. It's more of a spiritual animal to them.
Right.
It's more as how the Native Americans view the Sasquatch here in the U.S. as more of a spiritual being than an actual physical being.
Right.
Now, it's still a physical being to them nonetheless, but it's more of part of the land.
Right. It's just kind of it really is. It's the exact same thing, really, as Bigfoot. Just over there, it's a slightly different creature. It looks a little bit different. It's a little bit thicker. It's lighter in color. I think its arms are a little bit longer. It looks much more primate to me, honestly.
Yeah, from what I've seen of their...
It looks much more just like a gigantic, ape.
Yeah.
So...
well, and in that area, you could think that that's very reasonable. I mean...
Yeah, it makes more sense, yeah.
It does make sense for there to be a large primate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean...
But even taking that into consideration, if one lives there... Who's not to say that its cousin lives out here, in other parts of the area that isn't completely filled with snow, but rather just thick forest.
And that would explain
it's camouflage,
a more dark,
a dark
and
color,
brownish looking fur.
Mm-hmm. It's camouflage. They're just blending in with their environment.
Exactly.
It's just over however many hundreds of thousands of years or whatever.
What if they're like chameleons and like when there is snow?
Maybe there is only one. And he's just constantly kind of like using portals.
Well, I mean, I discussed that in the very first episode.
Yeah.
I'm pretty convinced that he's an extra-dimensional being.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get into that yet because I think that's
the
a little
ultimate
too...
truth. That's the ultimate truth.
Yeah, he's an extra-dimensional being traveling back and forth between different dimensions.
Right. He's just kind of popping in and be like, hey, I'm going to go over to Mount Everest and... hang out on top of the mountain for a while and
probably should put on my white fur coat.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I'm gonna wear white. Wearing white, I'm going to scare some mountain, climbers. And he's like, a little cold here. I'm gonna go back to Washington. It's nice and
rainy there.
Well, it's a little. The weather isn't quite as harsh. You can just go scare some hunters.
Yeah, why not?
And then go down to Florida. It's super humid down there. So he just starts sweating, and then
that's why he smells so bad.
That's why he smells so bad.
The skunk ape exists.
That's where you get the Florida skunk ape. Can you tell us some about
Great segue.
Yeah.
So the Florida skunk ape is. You may have seen the picture. It is floated around the internet. It's been posted on just about every video that includes so-called proof of quote-unquote Bigfoot. And it is... The picture that we saw looks very similar to a dark-colored orangutan. Like if you took an orangutan and dyed his fur black...
Yeah,
that would look very similar to what this character...
Pretty similar, yeah. I mean, it's got that same kind of wide face and everything to it. Just look up famous. Just Google famous Florida skunk ape. Look under the images, you'll find it there.
Absolutely,
like it's hidden behind those
palm leaves. It looks
whatever
like
the hell those things are.
The bush looks like it's somewhere around 4.5 feet tall. In the description of the skunk ape, it said that It's
like 6 to 7 feet
6
tall.
to 7 feet tall.
Kneeling down.
Kneeling down.
Yeah.
I don't see that it's kneeling down in this picture. It looks
either.
more
It
like
looks
it's
kinda
got
hunched.
shorter legs and it's hunched over.
Yeah.
It does look like it has much longer arms, much like an orangutan or a chimpanzee.
Mm-hmm. But its body looks much thicker than that, though. It looks like thick,
if
like
it was if it was an orangutan, just like it would have to be a darker colored orangutan, and I don't know if those exist.
I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to say.
I do think that orangutans are thicker. But that being said,
But he's like thick, dude.
Yeah,
like,
he is thick. Think of like gorilla kind of,
right?
Just
he's
not
like
quite that wide
thick.
in the shoulders.
Mm-hmm. And but taller.
Yes.
And a little bit more of a it's a lot of people use it for Bigfoot, but he does look much more
Ape-like
or monkey-like in the face for sure.
So in this thought process, the reason they call him the skunk ape is because he just stinks.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't the only sighting. This is just the only really solid picture. And in fact, it's actually one of the best pictures of a cryptid primate that I've ever really seen.
Absolutely.
It is a very solid picture.
Yeah.
But it also leaves some questions of what it could be.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it really
gets almost too good.
Yeah, it's so good. Like, honestly, it does look like if you got like a hefty orangutan and dyed his hair black, you'd basically have this.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that being said, I mean, it's a great, it's supposed to live mostly in swamps, and the skunk ape hunts in a similar area to all of the alligators and stuff. And this animal would likely, in my opinion, and once again, this is an opinion, and as we've established, we're not scientists.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it would explain why it looks a little bit more ape-like, because living in the swamps and hiding out in swamps, that's a great way to not be seen by very many people. I mean, there's only a few people that go down into those swamps regularly anyway, and typically they're hunting alligators, so they're looking at the water.
This could be hanging up all around the trees and everything.
This could be hanging out in the trees.
Stinks like crazy down there anyway, so it's not like...
And that's what I think. I think that it hangs out in the trees because it's not a huge animal.
It's got them big long arms,
It's a big animal, but it's not so big that it's not going to look like lunch to a gator.
It's not like Sasquatch big.
Yeah,
It's not like 8 feet tall.
This thing looks like it could be taken down by a gator, which to me means that it has an adaptation to avoid alligators. Where it can stay in the trees typically.
Yeah.
There's been many sightings, most of them by people out in the swamps.
Yeah.
This one is the first one that I've heard of where they're relatively close to civilization. They seem a little bit more elusive and less out there and seen by people. And I personally think it's because, most people don't go, hunting around in the swamps. They just don't. Unless they're hunting for alligators.
I wouldn't want to.
They're not in the swamp.
Be a terrible area.
It's just gross.
Yeah. It's like all them spiders and snakes and like alligators and whatever, man. Like,
it's like my worst nightmare.
It's terrible. It's so humid. Like, you don't know you don't know. Yeah.
I thought it was humid coming to Tennessee, but I just imagine
time.
Going down there and it's like instant swamp ash. You step outside of your vehicle.
Ugh.
Have we established whether we can cuss on this show a little bit?
I don't care.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
But I honestly do think that, if he lives in the swamps, he's got to hide out. There are 2 big predators down there in the swamps, and I don't care what anybody says. Pythons are a big problem in Florida now.
And that was something that humans introduced.
Exactly. But they're just as prevalent and just as much of a problem as alligators now.
It's a huge problem there. Because people are just letting their snakes go.
It's like the perfect habitat for them.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's absolutely the perfect habitat for them.
Yeah.
So I think that they've evolved a way to avoid being in
I guess
danger.
a snake could get up there, but that python infestation is much more recent.
Relatively recent.
Yeah, it's not like something that's been there for a long time.
And
They've had snakes, but not like these giant.
And even a python is not typically an animal that can take down something relatively the size of a human being.
Right.
You're talking about...
They get huge. And if they wanted to, they could squeeze the shit out of people. But
yeah. But they're typically not an animal that is known for taking down a human being. So I don't see that being a big predator for them.
Right.
But I do see that an alligator it doesn't want to swim down around in the swamp with those alligators and snakes and stuff it can't see. It's up in the trees.
Right. So tell me about the little ones. Was it Indonesia?
Oh, the orang pendek.
Yeah.
So the orang pendek is native to what I believe is Indonesia, and Mike's checking right now.
Yeah, it's Indonesian for short person.
Okay.
Let's see.
Oh, look, your tell me about the little people was perfect.
Yeah. All right, so the orang pendek, Indonesian for short person, is the most common name given to a cryptozoological animal that reportedly inhabits remote mountainous forests on the island of Sumatra. Yeah. It says this animal has allegedly been seen and documented for at least 100 years by forest tribes, local villagers, Dutch colonists, and Western scientists and travelers. Consensus among witnesses is that the animal is a ground-dwelling bipedal primate and is covered in short fur and stands between 800 and 150 centimeters. That is 30 to 60 inches tall. So yeah, that's interesting. I'd never heard of this before for some reason. So
the interesting part about it to me is that a very short time ago, we discovered what some people referred to as fossilized remains of a very small humanoid creature in a very similar area. I think it was also found in Indonesia. Homo florensis.
Yeah. I've heard of that for sure. Yeah.
Nicknamed the Hobbit, is an extinct species of genus Homo. The remains of an individual that would have stood about 1.1 meters tall, or 3.7 inches high, or 3 feet 7 inches high, were discovered in 2003 in Indonesia. Now, didn't we just say that these little guys were called the little people?
Yeah, well, that is, their name is short people in Indonesian.
Short people. Does it define how tall they were again?
Yeah, they were 30 to 60 inches tall.
What is 30 to 60 inches? Is that somewhere in the range of 3 feet?
Yeah, well, 3 feet is, 36 inches. So, yeah.
Are we sure it's a fossil? I'm just connecting some dots here.
Well, no, I didn't read anything about a fossil. Rather, just
No, I mean you're telling me that the native people have found, or
this was just what they had reported. This is on their Wikipedia page.
A character or a small humanoid creature around 36 inches tall, and this is a small humanoid creature, a fossil of a small humanoid creature around 36 inches tall.
There you go. I mean,
I'm not trying to, say I answered a question here, but I think I might have answered a question here.
I mean, possibly. It's totally possible. I mean, I guess it depends on what the fossil looks like. And this has also only been documented for the last 100 years or so by tribes and stuff. So.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's not to say that they're not related in some sort of way, just like some very small primate of some kind, So it kind of reminds me of this legend of these little people in Alaska. And we'll save that for another episode. I can't exactly remember what they're called right now, but essentially they're kind of like little gnomes or whatever. That live in the forest and in the mountainsides and stuff, and they have little houses and stuff in the mountains, I think, in the hillsides and things. And I believe it's an Eskimo legend. Okay. But yeah, we'll do another episode on that. But either way, it just kind of reminded me of that. I don't want to get off the topic of primates, and primate cryptids and whatnot. But
no, it's really interesting to hear so many different representations of some sort of ape. And when you really think about it, it's how is it so strange for there to be a large North American ape, for there to
it's not strange at all.
For there to be some sort of ape in Indonesia? Oh, come on. Like, really? There's like 17 apes in Indonesia.
Right,
like,
right.
Don't quote me. I'm not a scientist. Please don't burn me at the stake. Please.
It's possible. You know, there is so many types of primates in the world. You know, so many. Why is it so hard to believe for people that there is possibly one that was adapted to the North American climate, is very elusive, smart enough to stay away from humans, and is very rare? You know, it's not that hard to imagine. There's so much undiscovered wilderness in the world. It is unbelievable. I don't remember exactly what it is, but there's a lot. We people think that we've seen every bit of the earth. We haven't. There's a lot of undiscovered territory on the earth. And to think that we know of all kinds, of all types of creatures and all types of species of animals and things, that's just stupid. So, like, why is it so hard for people to try and, to just believe in the possibility?
Yeah, and that's where I fall.
Believe in the possibility because it's totally possible. This is
whether or not I believe
possible.
Every sighting that's out there. I don't.
Oh man, a lot of them are bogus. A lot of them
are so BS.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a story of a guy that shot a Bigfoot, felt bad because he shot the Bigfoot and it was dying, and then finally brought in some hair to get, and it was totally BS. Completely.
You would have
BS.
brought the whole damn thing.
Yeah. I don't care how human it looks.
Yeah.
If I've shot a Bigfoot and I know I've shot a Bigfoot, I'm bringing in the Bigfoot.
Hauling that guy in.
I'm bringing him in.
Yeah.
I'm taking it to the first university, the first scientist that I can figure out. You know, who, I'm actually dropping by your house first.
Yeah.
I'm be like, check out this Bigfoot that I saw.
We'll get in and it'll just be like strung out in the back seat and be like, we gotta go now. And an interesting thing about us is we live here in Tennessee, Clarksville, Tennessee, but we're both from Idaho. Are you originally from Idaho? Or
yes.
From Washington?
Well,
maybe?
I spent quite a bit of... I grew up in Washington. I spent quite a bit of time in Western Washington.
Okay.
Right in the Bigfoot capital of the world.
Capital of the world, yeah. But one of the really cool things is that in Pocatello also has its own legitimate Bigfoot sighting. Pocatello, Idaho, is the University of Idaho, Idaho State University.
And there's a professor there that's like one of the only...
the most the most well-renowned professors in the world who works there. So it's pretty interesting, that we have so many ties just at home, with that. And then, but yeah, obviously up there in Washington, I mean, hundreds of sightings.
And it's really hard for me because, even my wife's like, Bigfoot isn't real. There's no way Bigfoot is real.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I think you're not giving enough credit to evolution.
Right.
And they could evolve. We evolved.
Yeah.
And if they're even half as smart as we are, they know what they're doing.
Right. Well, even they just need to be a little smart, just a little, but still be in touch with all their primitive instincts that all the animals have out there in the forest. And
they're smarter than us in the wild, 100%.
Because of those primitive instincts. Yeah. So it's,
look at Wolverine.
That's how they stay away. Exactly. Look at Wolverine. I guess. I mean,
sorry.
But
tangent, my bad.
But so I mean, it's not that hard to imagine that with all of those factors in play that something like that is possible, and something like out there is existing and roaming around and just staying clear the hell away from all of us stupid, weird looking bald apes.
Exactly. Now, I am a firm believer that, like I said earlier, I think that there is a Sasquatch aware of our presence, at all times when we're in the woods.
Hell yeah.
When we're in their territory, they're aware of us.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mentioned earlier that
I'm sure their hearing is just like...
Yeah. Exactly. And I mentioned earlier that about my thought process on all these disappearances.
Mm-hmm.
If an adult male is in the woods and we see a Sasquatch, I think that's a situation where the Sasquatch immediately knows that they are in imminent danger, because we could be carrying a gun or a weapon that could seriously hurt them, and they know that. And that's why you never hear very many situations where a Sasquatch doesn't surprise you doesn't surprise the person being attacked.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if there are a few situations where somebody was attacked and they were surprised by a Sasquatch, I believe that many of those are those people that just disappear. They're never seen from again.
Right.
Because
that could be so many factors. I mean, we can't just jump straight to the conclusion that it was Bigfoot or something.
Well, I don't think it's all Bigfoot.
Yeah.
But I like to jump to conclusions.
Yeah, and that's a fun one to jump to. I would love to jump to that conclusion.
Matt, it says Bigfoot, and I jump to that one all the time.
You should bring that over.
Okay, perfect. We will.
Okay.
So proud of myself for that one.
Yeah, that's good. But anyways, I think the point that we're just trying to get across is that it's just straight up ridiculous to completely discount the existence.
And that's what we're hoping, that you leave here at least feeling that there's a chance that Bigfoot exists. Not that you necessarily believe in him.
Right.
I don't necessarily believe in ghosts, but I can't discount the fact that it's a possibility.
Right. That's the way we should be living our lives, I think, in my opinion. And I think that's one of the big things that we'll be stressing on this podcast is that just
have an open
embrace
mind.
Yeah, have an open mind and just embrace the possibility of something like that, something that's just not regular, and it isn't, it's beyond the terrestrial. It's out of this world,
Out of this world.
To think about, if it's not literally out of this world like aliens or whatever, or parallel dimensions and things like that, just out of this world to even think about, just the possible existence of little people, or, of Bigfoot or Yeti getting together and sharing a beer and talking about all the people that they scared because it's just fun.
Absolutely. The little people are serving them. They treat them like crap because they're smaller than everybody else.
Bring me more grapes, and little children fingers, And,
come hither, baby fingers.
Yeah, and stop freaking taking all this shit so seriously. It's like, just enjoy like how weird and crazy the world can be, and embrace that and like wonder about shit. Wonder about things.
When did we stop embracing the weird? I mean,
right.
When did magic stop being magic?
Right. I mean, there was wizards back in the day. Like Merlin was an actual dude.
Exactly. Now, granted,
he was probably crazy. Everybody probably thought he was crazy, but like
he probably was completely nuts.
Yeah, but yeah, I feel like in culture nowadays, we're so kind of dumbed down on the broad scale to using our imagination for one, but just embracing the possibility of something that we don't see every single day, because all we see is roads and cars. We go to work, we talk on our phones, all we see is technology, and who are the people that are mostly seeing all of the Bigfoot and Sasquatch sightings? They're people who are back out in the woods. They're hunters mostly, people that are just constantly out in the woods. Those are the people that are seeing it, so like the people you don't see those people.
That are most in tune with our world are the ones that are seeing it, and we're calling them crazy.
And we're the ones calling them crazy, you don't almost every single time you talk to somebody who's like a big outdoorsman or whatnot, almost always they believe in Bigfoot. Almost always.
Or they believe there's
to
something
that.
out there that they can't explain.
Right.
Whether or not they think, oh, it's definitely
exactly
Bigfoot.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm even trying to say.
Right.
I'm just saying there's something out there that's unexplainable.
Mm-hmm.
What's picking up these children and carrying them 15 miles?
Right. And just dropping them off.
And just dropping them off. Keeping them warm overnight because their child's cold.
Yeah, you ain't going to
And
see a bear doing that.
And they took all of its clothes for some reason.
Well, we're not. It's like, he's probably thinking, get all that crap off of you. Like, what are you doing?
How do you live?
Where's all your hair?
Where's your
crap
fur?
off of you. Where's your fur? Like, let me just get over here. It's cold out. You're gonna freeze to death.
Damn kids need to get off my lawn.
Yeah.
Get off my lawn.
And then some big pompous dude comes around and he's like, I'm gonna mess you up, pal, and just beats the shit out of him. Because he's like, now you're in my territory, pal.
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
Either way, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, all these guys, they're awesome.
Mm-hmm. And I think
give them
that
a
they're
chance.
real.
Give Squatch a chance.
I also think that they're interdimensional beings.
Of course they are.
It's the most logical
It's
sense.
the most logical thing.
Or interprogrammable beings.
You think so? Well, very well could be. It's a callback to our last episode of Simulation Theory. If you haven't listened to that, go listen to that. But anyways, I think we're going to wrap it up. But we have a Patreon page, so check that out. As well as a Facebook page. We're going to start getting
Beyond Terrestrial Podcast at Patreon. Something like that.
It's something like that. Find us on Patreon. We'll put a link down there. We're at Beyond Terrestrial Podcast on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Beyond Terrestrial. We're going to be getting Instagram going. Probably not Twitter because that shit's stupid.
I can't say things in 1,200 words or less or whatever it is.
Yeah.
122 characters or something.
Whatever it is. I don't know. Twitter's stupid. But
we're going to get sued.
Yeah. Twitter sucks. They're bringing, anyways.
Illuminati and Twitter is the devil.
Yeah, we'll get into that too. That's actually a full subject. But I guess that's it. Thanks for listening. Lee, you have anything else?
No, I got nothing. Thanks for listening, guys. I really enjoyed these talks with Mike and our listeners. Have a fun time.
See ya.
Bye.